The morning after Evelyn's visit, Rachel woke with her mind still swirling from the previous evening. The encounter had left a subtle mark on her heart. A mixture of curiosity, admiration, and something she couldn't quite name. She tried to push the feelings aside as she got ready for work, but they lingered, quietly persistent, like an echo she couldn't ignore. The memory of Evelyn's warm smile, her confident presence, and the gentle way Mark had interacted with her refused to fade. Rachel realized she was now seeing her boyfriend in a light she hadn't noticed before, and it made her both uneasy and intrigued. At the office, Rachel found herself unusually distracted. She replayed the dinner over and over, analyzing every glance, every laugh, every subtle gesture between Mark and Evelyn. She tried to focus on her tasks, but the image of Evelyn's poise and the ease with which she carried herself kept appearing in her mind. The curiosity that had started as simple intrigue was transforming into something deeper. Rachel had always been confident in her relationship with Mark, but now a small seed of doubt had taken root, one that was not about mistrust, but about understanding and perception. That evening, Mark called her from the office. "Hey, Rachel, my boss is free to meet tomorrow after work. I thought maybe you'd like to grab coffee together. Just us three. It could be fun." Rachel felt a flutter in her chest. She hesitated, unsure whether to accept or decline, but curiosity won. "Sure," she said softly, her voice betraying a mixture of nervousness and anticipation. The next day, the cafe was warm and cozy, filled with a gentle hum of conversation and the scent of freshly brewed coffee. Mark and Evelyn arrived first, greeting Rachel with smiles. As soon as they sat, the dynamic from the previous evening returned, a combination of ease, warmth, and subtle tension. Evelyn's presence was commanding yet comforting, and Rachel noticed immediately how naturally she and Mark communicated, exchanging glances and small gestures that Rachel hadn't paid attention to before. They ordered coffee and small pastries, and conversation began lightly, moving from work topics to casual stories about their weekend. Rachel listened, observing the interaction between Mark and Evelyn. Every laugh, every exchange of words seemed to reveal a deeper layer of their relationship, a layer of mutual respect, understanding, and shared history. Rachel realized that this wasn't something to fear. It was something to observe and learn from. Yet a quiet, inexplicable pull kept her alert. Aware of the emotional weight in the room, as the conversation deepened, Evelyn turned her attention to Rachel, asking questions about her life, her work, and her interests. Rachel was surprised by how easy it was to open up, how genuine Evelyn's curiosity felt. She realized she was no longer just observing. She was engaging, connecting, and slowly letting go of her initial apprehension. Evelyn's warmth and sincerity were magnetic, not in a romantic sense, but in a way that made Rachel feel seen and valued. Mark, too, seemed more relaxed than usual. His attention was shared but balanced, and Rachel noticed how his interactions with her had shifted. Subtly, he was more open, more present, more aware of her reactions. There was a harmony in the three-way conversation that she hadn't expected, a rhythm that made her feel included rather than excluded. Rachel began to appreciate the complexity of human relationships, the way emotions, admiration, and respect could intertwine without crossing boundaries. As the afternoon wore on, they moved from light conversation to more personal topics. Evelyn spoke about her childhood, her career struggles, and the moments that shaped her into the person she was. Rachel listened, captivated by the authenticity of Evelyn's words. The stories weren't just interesting. They were relatable, emotionally rich, and filled with subtle lessons about resilience, honesty, and human connection. Rachel realized she was learning not just about Evelyn and Mark, but about herself, about how to navigate feelings, and how to observe relationships without jumping to assumptions. At one point, Mark excused himself to take a work call, leaving Rachel and Evelyn alone. The dynamic shifted slightly, a gentle intimacy emerging in the space between them. Evelyn leaned in slightly, her voice soft but sincere. "You're very perceptive, Rachel. I can see the care you have for Mark. It's obvious you love him deeply." Rachel felt a rush of emotion. She wasn't sure whether to respond with gratitude, surprise, or a quiet acknowledgement of the feelings Evelyn had read so accurately. "Thank you," she said softly. "I do care. A lot. I just sometimes wonder if I understand everything about him, about the people he interacts with." Evelyn smiled knowingly. "It's normal. Relationships are complex. People have layers, and sometimes it takes time to see them clearly. What's important is that you're paying attention, that you're present. That matters more than perfection." Rachel felt a wave of relief and clarity. Evelyn wasn't a threat. She was a guide, a mirror reflecting parts of Mark that Rachel hadn't fully seen. It was a revelation, a moment of insight that reshaped her perception of her relationship. She realized that her initial apprehension had been rooted not in mistrust, but in unfamiliarity and lack of understanding. When Mark returned, the conversation shifted naturally back to shared jokes, lighthearted banter, and plans for upcoming events. Rachel noticed how effortlessly Evelyn contributed to the dialogue, how her presence seemed to complement rather than overshadow, to harmonize rather than dominate. The three of them shared laughter, thoughtful exchanges, and a quiet understanding that this meeting was more than just casual coffee. It was a moment of connection, observation, and subtle emotional growth. By the end of the afternoon, Rachel felt a profound shift within herself. The nervousness, curiosity, and quiet tension that had accompanied Evelyn's first visit had transformed into insight, appreciation, and emotional clarity. She understood that Mark's relationship with Evelyn was professional, respectful, and layered with mutual admiration, and that her role as his partner was secure, not threatened, but enriched by awareness and understanding. The walk home was quiet, filled with soft reflections. Rachel observed the city streets, noting the gentle sway of people around her, the way light played on the buildings, and the warmth of the sun setting in the sky. Her mind wandered, revisiting the day's conversation, the subtleties of human connection, and the gentle emotional awakening she had experienced. She realized she had grown not in response to fear or jealousy, but in response to understanding, empathy, and careful observation. That night, Rachel reflected on her feelings in the quiet of their apartment. She realized she wasn't merely learning about Mark. She was learning about herself, about emotional intelligence, and about the depth of human connection. Evelyn had acted as a catalyst, bringing insight into Mark's life, into their relationship, and into the ways people interact, admire, and respect each other. Rachel understood that sometimes clarity comes not from confrontation or suspicion, but from observation, dialogue, and empathy. Over the next few days, Rachel noticed subtle changes in her dynamic with Mark. She felt more attuned to his moods, more patient with his distractions, and more confident in her understanding of his professional and personal world. Evelyn's visit had provided context, clarity, and a quiet emotional framework that allowed Rachel to navigate her feelings without fear or resentment. She felt a sense of emotional balance, quiet confidence that the complexity she had observed was natural and healthy. The lessons from that meeting lingered with Rachel. She realized that life and love were rarely simple. They were filled with layers, nuances, and unexpected insights. By observing Mark and Evelyn, she had discovered a richer understanding of relationships, communication, and trust. She felt a renewed appreciation for the subtleties of human interaction and the power of genuine connection. As Rachel prepared for bed that evening, she thought about Evelyn and the quiet impact she had made. The woman had brought clarity, perspective, and a gentle emotional awakening, leaving Rachel with a deeper understanding of herself and her relationship. Rachel realized that she had entered a situation fraught with uncertainty, yet she emerged with insight, appreciation, and a renewed sense of love and trust for Mark. Sitting by the window, Rachel watched the city lights glimmer against the night sky. She understood that the evening coffee had been more than a casual meeting, yet had been a pivotal moment of growth, reflection, and emotional clarity. She had learned that relationships are enriched by understanding, that fear and curiosity can coexist with love, and that sometimes the most profound insights come from unexpected encounters. And as Rachel turned off the lights She knew that the story was far from over. Evelyn's presence, Mark's subtle gestures, and her own emotional awakening were only the beginning. The next encounters, conversations, and moments of shared insight would continue to shape her understanding, revealing layers of human connection, affection, and subtle intimacy that she had never fully considered. Soft hook for part 3. Rachel had gained insight, clarity, and emotional understanding. Yet she knew that the next encounter with Evelyn Ann, the unfolding moments with Mark, would reveal even deeper truths, subtle connections, and perhaps emotional surprises that she could not yet predict. The week following the cafe meeting, Rachel felt a quiet shift in her heart and mind. Evelyn's visit had opened her eyes to subtle dynamics she hadn't noticed before. And Rachel was determined to observe, understand, and navigate the emotions that stirred within her. She realized that Mark's relationship with Evelyn wasn't a threat to it, was a reflection of his respect, his attentiveness, and the person he was beneath the surface. Still, she couldn't deny the lingering curiosity and fascination Evelyn had inspired. One afternoon, Mark called from the office. "Rachel, Evelyn has some free time tonight. Would you like to come over to my place after work? She wants to discuss a project with me, and I thought you could join. It'll be casual." Rachel hesitated for only a moment. She had grown more confident in understanding the dynamics between Mark and Evelyn. Yet there was a thrill in accepting the invitation. It's a chance to witness more, to engage more, and perhaps to understand her own emotions better. "Sure," she replied, trying to keep her voice steady. That evening, Rachel arrived at Mark's apartment. Evelyn was already there, casually reviewing some documents on the kitchen counter. Her presence was calm, poised, and warm, making the space feel inviting rather than intimidating. Rachel felt a flutter of nerves, but she reminded herself that this was a professional and personal meeting combined. A chance to observe, learn, and connect. Mark poured coffee for all three of them, and they settled into a comfortable rhythm. Conversation began with the project, but as usual, it naturally evolved into stories, laughter, and personal anecdotes. Rachel observed closely, noticing how effortlessly Mark and Evelyn communicated. Their gestures were subtle, their expressions familiar, but nothing inappropriate. Rachel realized that what she had initially perceived as tension was simply a reflection of comfort and respect, a depth of relationship she hadn't fully appreciated. As they spoke, Rachel found herself drawn to Evelyn's warmth. She noticed the gentle attentiveness in her tone, the ease with which she listened, and the way she made space for both. Rachel and Mark. Rachel realized that this was why she felt a quiet pull toward Evelyn, not romantic desire, but emotional resonance, a connection to someone who was genuine, confident, and intuitively understanding. It was a rare quality, and Rachel admired it deeply at one point. Mark excused himself to take a work call, leaving Rachel and Evelyn alone. The quiet of the apartment created an intimate space, filled with soft light and gentle conversation. Evelyn turned to Rachel with a small smile. "You've been very perceptive about all of this," she said. Rachel laughed lightly, feeling slightly embarrassed. "I guess I've been paying attention. I wanted to understand, not just assume." Evelyn nodded, her eyes kind. "That's wise. People often jump to conclusions, especially when emotions are involved. But observation, empathy, and curiosity reveal more than suspicion ever could." Rachel felt a sense of clarity wash over her. Evelyn's words were gentle, yet they carried weight, a subtle guidance that helped Rachel navigate her emotions. She realized that her feelings for Mark had not diminished. They had deepened through understanding, and her appreciation for Evelyn had grown not as a rival, but as someone who had helped illuminate truths about the people she loved. When Mark returned, the three of them continued talking, and Rachel felt a sense of harmony she hadn't expected. The evening flowed naturally, a combination of professional discussion and personal connection. Laughter, shared stories, and quiet observations created a rhythm that made Rachel feel included, understood, and emotionally grounded. After dinner, as they were cleaning up together, Mark reached for Rachel's hand. "Thanks for joining tonight," he said softly. It means a lot to me that you're willing to be part of this, even when it's a little unusual." Rachel squeezed his hand. Her heart warmed. "Of course. I want to understand. I want to see the full picture." Evelyn smiled at the exchange, a knowing look in her eyes. It wasn't intrusive. It was gentle, a quiet acknowledgement that the dynamics were shifting in a healthy and respectful way. Rachel realized that Evelyn's presence had been a catalyst, a disruption for connection, understanding, and emotional growth. The following days were filled with subtle reflection for Rachel. She noticed changes in herself, a deeper patience, a more nuanced understanding of Mark's personality, and an appreciation for the layers of relationships and human interaction. She no longer felt unease at Evelyn's presence. Instead, she felt curiosity, respect, and a quiet admiration for the woman who had helped her see her boyfriend and herself with greater clarity. One afternoon, Mark surprised Rachel with a note and flowers at her work. He had left it on her desk with a simple message: "Thank you for being so understanding. You make everything clearer. Love, Mark." Rachel felt her heart swell. The note was small, but its meaning was profound. It reflected not just Mark's affection, but his recognition of her patience, empathy, and emotional intelligence. She realized that love was strengthened not only by passion, but by understanding, respect, and shared experiences. That evening, Rachel met Evelyn at a local charity event that Mark had suggested they attend together. Evelyn's presence was elegant and easygoing, and Rachel found herself enjoying the evening without tension or doubt. The three of them navigated conversations with ease, laughter, and insight. Rachel noticed how Evelyn made both her and Mark feel comfortable, and how Mark responded with genuine warmth. The dynamic was balanced, respectful, and emotionally fulfilling in unexpected ways. As the night drew to a close, Rachel and Evelyn walked briefly outside. The city lights glimmered on the wet pavement from a recent drizzle, creating a soft, romantic atmosphere. Evelyn turned to Rachel, her expression calm but sincere. "You've grown a lot in understanding, Rachel. I can see it in how you approach Mark and how you approach life." Rachel felt a wave of gratitude. "Thank you. I've learned a lot from watching, listening, and being part of all this. I realize now that relationships aren't just about love, they're about clarity, respect, and understanding." Evelyn nodded. "Exactly. And you've done well. Trust, observation, and empathy are more powerful than suspicion or doubt. You've created space for love to thrive." Rachel smiled softly. "I understand that now, and I appreciate everything you've helped me see so much more clearly." When she returned home, Rachel reflected on the journey of the past week. She realized that the evenings with Evelyn had revealed truths, not about betrayal or rivalry, but about connection, emotional intelligence, and human complexity. She had witnessed Mark's professional depth, observed the subtle nuances of their interactions, and found clarity within herself. Her love for Mark had strengthened, enriched by understanding, and her admiration for Evelyn had grown, rooted in respect, insight, and a recognition of human authenticity. Over the next few weeks, Rachel, Mark, and Evelyn continued to spend time together in various settings: coffee meetings, casual dinners, and work-related discussions. Each encounter deepened Rachel's understanding not only of Mark and Evelyn, but of herself. She noticed how her patience had grown, how her ability to interpret gestures, words, and emotions had sharpened, and how her confidence in navigating relationships had increased. The initial tension had transformed into insight, empathy, and subtle emotional fulfillment. Rachel realized that life often presented unexpected opportunities for growth. What had started as a moment of apprehension, uncertainty, and subtle jealousy had become a journey of understanding, emotional intelligence, and clarity. She had learned to observe without judgment, to engage without fear, and to appreciate the depth and complexity of human connection. One evening, as Rachel sat on her balcony reflecting on the experiences of the past month, she realized that the simple act of bringing someone new into their lives had created ripples of insight and growth. Evelyn's presence had not disrupted her relationship. It had illuminated it. Mark as attentiveness, Evelyn as warmth. And her own observations had combined to create a richer understanding of love, trust, and emotional depth. And as Rachel watched the city lights twinkle in the distance, she understood something profound. Clarity often comes from the most unexpected encounters, by observing, listening, and engaging with openness. She had discovered truths, not just about Mark and Evelyn, but about herself. Her love had deepened, her respect had grown, and her confidence had strengthened. In that moment, Rachel felt a quiet satisfaction. She had entered the journey uncertain, apprehensive, and curious. She had emerged with insight, emotional maturity, and clarity. She understood now that relationships were never simple, but the complexity was what made them beautiful. She appreciated Mark in ways she hadn't before, valued Evelyn as a remarkable presence, and recognized herself as someone capable of growth, understanding, and genuine love. Soft ending hook. Rachel had learned that sometimes life's most meaningful lessons come from unexpected connections. When Mark brought Evelyn into their lives, it wasn't just a meeting, it was an awakening. Everything that had seemed confusing suddenly made sense. And Rachel discovered that love, clarity, and understanding often arrive together, quietly, gently, and profoundly.